In the future, we're trying out new formats, and this year is E3.
Welcome back, Space Cadets, to Hal Dave's Trip to Jupiter, where we are told that apparently E3 happened recently on Earth.
Well, it's another year, and I'm gonna be honest, and I hate saying this, Nintendo won E3 if people care about it.
I mean, I would say over the years I've been increasingly disenchanted with E3 since it becomes like more minimalistic every single time, it feels like.
E3 is one of those things of I genuinely don't think it knows what to do with itself anymore. Well, it's because, for one thing, we have the internet.
I was just about to say the same thing, actually, because once upon a time these trade shows actually meant something because it was the first time people would hear about new games or new software or new consoles that were coming out. But now we have internet, the rumors abound. Nintendo's Nintendo Direct stuff completely usurps all that for everybody who doesn't get to go to those conferences.
Well, it doesn't help that the conferences feel like the most undercompensating yet overcompensating thing ever. If you want to, okay, video games has an image problem with itself. It's going through a period where it's the biggest dick in town. It has everybody's okay with it. It's everybody loves it. But the big problem is video game companies in general have an image problem with itself. They want to be respected, and they're trying to get these trade shows to show how big they are, how amazing they are, how much production they can put into something, how much they can relate to people. So it's
how much production they can put into something. That's why you get Square Enix, where they show a YouTube playlist as part of their big presentation.
If you really, actually, I'm more upset by what EA does with the sports games. It makes that such a big centerpiece of their show, and it's a problem because they do it every year, and there's no cheering. It sucks. It's like...
Well, okay, when you think of the position that EA was in, they've come off of Star Wars Battlefront and are trying to move forwards from that. I think that people are just in a position that they don't want to like EA. So no matter what they did, people weren't going to like it, but they could have done more.
EA always could do more. EA is one of those things that they always kind of end up as the default loser of this whole thing. Just because EA...
They've made themselves into that, though.
They turned themselves into a monster. Genuinely thinking about it now, I think EA Sports is the only thing that the company has absolute faith in.
Well, it's something that's consistently profitable because the people that are buying EA Sports titles are not the same people who are watching E3, who are paying attention to video games at all. Because I've worked in some jobs where I've taught kids, grade schoolers and stuff, and you get that kid who's talking about how he likes his FIFA or his sports games, and I realized that they're not interested in any action adventure games, any RPGs. They don't care about any of this stuff. They want their sports games. And I realize there's a whole swath of people who just want their sports games, and they don't play other video games. They're not in it for getting immersed in an adventure world or a fantasy. They're in it for being able to play their sports games. And those people, they don't know or care of any of the things that are happening in the games industry.
I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate for sports gamers to an extent. Now, I'm not a sports fan. In fact, I'm quite the opposite. The closest I get to sports is I watch WWE and wrestling events from time to time. That's as close as I get. But there are aspects to sports games where there is a fantasy element. There are more role-playing sports games out there.
Well, that reminds me, I had a conversation with a friend many years ago now, where I kind of asked him, well, why play a sports video game when maybe you could go out and actually play that sport? And he definitely clarified to me that it's when you're playing a sports game, you have a chance to do some role-playing with sports superstars and people who are better at the sport than you're ever going to be. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciated that, and so I realized that there's that element to it.
Well, that's an element to it, and I don't want to diss entirely sports gamers. What I'm more dissing with EA is that if they want to show off sports game, do it at an NFL show or an NBA show. Like, do that. Like, that's probably where you get the most exposure from that, you know?
Oh no, I don't want to diss sports gamers, but I mean I do want to diss EA because I feel like they've.
Right, let's.
I feel like they've become the evil corporate overlords in which. Everything has to be like monetized and season passed and DLC, and they've lost because Electronic Arts. Do you know why it's called Electronic Arts?
Well, it was originally meant to promote electronic arts.
Exactly. It was about the artists, and so it was about creativity. It was about the creators having control over their product. And where's that nowadays?
Well, it kind of actually reminds me. It's a different path. Like, okay, in general. Again, equating comic book history here, but it reminds me a bit of what Image Comics did, which was it was a company that was meant to focus on creators first. And creators would actually own their properties. And this is EA can basically be described for its time as a third-party company that just ended up becoming too big and didn't know what to do with itself. To an extent nowadays.
Definitely. EA got so big that they became the thing that they originally rebelled against.
A lot of people who were part of that era are gone now, and right now EA just doesn't know what to do with itself and doesn't know what its gamers want. It also doesn't help that they're looking at the mobile market and thinking we can be that.
Yeah, I agree. You definitely see this problem these days where you have the $60 AAA game asking for microtransactions, asking for monetization in the same way as the mobile market. And you're like, no, I paid $60 for this game. Why should I have to pay more?
Well, to me, it's like this. It's not like I buy a graphic novel and have to pay $1 for each panel as I'm reading it.
You gotta pay $30 extra for that ending chapter.
Well, maybe if the book's a hardcover copy or something, but like, oh god, don't give comic companies ideas.
No. Marvel, you didn't hear this.
But, no, what I mean is that, like this, you wouldn't pay, like, an extra $1 for the last half of a movie.
No, I agree. And they don't know what they're doing. But, I have a degree in game design. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in computer game design, and so I kind of also understand that there's a lot of work that goes into making a game, and from what I understand, the $60 model of games at retail doesn't work in the sense that if you sell a game, if it's a big, huge, popular million seller, then yeah, it's successful. But only the top 10% of games make up the top 90% of revenue in the games industry. So that means the other 90% are commercial failures. And that's a bad time.
It's kind of insane how much money goes into these projects that just...
Yeah, well, but it's funny to me, and I've always found this funny. I've found this funny for many years of my life. When you look at certain games, you can kind of tell which ones are going to be successful and which ones aren't.
Oh, yeah.
So, when you see, like, Sony pop out, like, God of War or something, you're like, this is a hit. And you know it's going to be a hit. And then you get, like, some other games that are not, and you kind of wonder why no one stopped and said anything in the development process and being like, this might not be a good idea. I always find myself asking that when, like, a really stupid game comes out. What was it, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was the Russian dude with the tattoos on the Wii U.
I remember that game. Oh god.
I remember because it came out around the same time as like a month before Xenoblade X, and I was noticing, like, I was explaining to my professor at the time.
I might have a better game than that, actually, believe it or not. A game I always thought that had issues with marketing and, like, obviously was never going to be a big thing. Too Human.
Oh yeah, that's right. That game launched to little fanfare and didn't really succeed, right?
Oh, it did not succeed. And that game spent years on development. In fact, it started out in the previous console cycle. And that torpedoed the career of the guy who made it.
Okay, Wait, so was it an Xbox 360 title and
Yeah.
it started out in the Xbox?
Yeah, and my
Okay.
opinion started out on the N60. It would have started near the GameCube era. Because the game. Alright, the company.
That's right, Devil's Third was the game I was thinking of.
Anyway, let's actually talk a bit more. So, let me put it this way.
So no one stopped Devil's Third and was like, maybe this game isn't going to work.
Yeah, that's true.
And the same thing can be said for a lot of different games. There's like various games out there where they try like interesting things, but you can just kind of tell that they're not really going to work out.
Well, one of the things about it, one of the reasons I have such a respect for Spider-Man games, at the very least for most part, like, Spider-Man has had some dud games, don't get me wrong, but they always do put a little bit of effort into them. Some of the movie games, not so much. Spider-Man 2 is great, but some of the ones that are made without a movie attached to them are amazing games.
Now, I'm kind of a firm believer in the licensed game without X attached to it, without like a movie or a TV series attached to it, because we've definitely seen some examples of games that have done very well that way. You know, you have the Batman Arkham series. They weren't directly attached to anything, and they did really well. And then, you know, like Transformers, the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron series, they weren't directly attached to anything either, even though they sort of tried to at certain points. But like, they were very good. And I think that's important, because I think it's important for the developers to have freedom to make their game work. Because when they're constrained to a movie, like even just constrained to the movie's plotline, that limits their creativity and makes it a lot harder to make.
Well, if we ever get to it, I would love to do the Batman Begins game, because that's actually a very nice precursor to all the Arkham games.
All right, that's very curious to me, because I just remember like many years ago I had a conversation with a friend where he was hyping up Arkham Asylum, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you can use like Batman's detective vision and do all this cool stuff," and I'm just sitting there being like, "It's a licensed game, it's gonna fail," and then it comes out and I play it and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is great."
There are some duds of Batman games. Actually, I remember back in the. Anytime I would go into a GameStop for a while, I would always see copies of Batman Dark Vengeance, which was a GameCube, Xbox, PlayStation 2 game that had the Bruce Timm animated style, and I would always see it everywhere. Or The Rise of Sin Tzu and all that stuff. But
yeah, I remember seeing like they were like GameCube or PS2 titles.
But as much as I like talking about this to an extent, I do think we need to focus back a bit on E3.
Yeah, well, because what you're getting at is you saw Spider-Man at E3, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, okay.
Spoiler alert, Dave loves Spider-Man.
Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. I will fight anybody over this.
I mean, you don't have to fight me. He's a great character.
Genuinely, I think he's the best comic book character, but you can try and fight me. I won't listen to you. I'll just say you're wrong. But
yeah, so we're talking the PS4 Spider-Man who's incoming. What's the release date on that one?
I believe it's winter of this year is when he's coming out. We're also getting GameStop exclusive Spider-Man figures for this game, so that's going to be fascinating.
That is assuming that GameStop continues to exist for the rest of the year.
Yes. Well, dude, they're actually going to start selling comic books.
I've heard that.
Besides GameStop...
So Spider-Man, I actually haven't seen this bit from E3, so tell me what you think.
My opinion is that I knew that it was going to have an Arkham-style combat system, because that's what everybody does nowadays.
It works.
For Spider-Man, I think it actually works better than Batman, and I have my reason for this.
Well, I mean, I would say if you have like your primary attack at, say, the square button, and then the triangle button is your counterattack button, it works because... You know, Batman, he saw like little lightning bolts above people. For Spider-Man, it makes sense because he's got spider sense.
That's the point. The spider sense mechanic actually works.
Yeah, he can sense things coming.
Yeah.
I mean, Batman's just like a really cool dude, but Spider-Man actually has power relating to that.
Yeah, no, that's always been cool, and like I said, that's just an aspect about it. But the fact that we're getting so many villains in this game, like we got Electro, Scorpion, a lot of good favorites, fan favorites of mine.
Now, again, like, I was a little disenchanted with E3, and I was also busy with some other things, so I didn't see all this stuff. So do these characters have really good designs to go with them?
I like them. Genuinely, I think the Scorpion has a nice look. I like Electro. They decided to avoid making him look like Jamie Foxx, and he just looks like the classic
Electro.
Yeah.
Wait. Does he have like the lightning bolt, like star shape on his face?
They have a scar variation for it in this game that I'm like.
That's interesting.
I like it a lot. Actually, I think that's a great modernization of it. They also have Mr. Negative. He's not my favorite of the new Spider-Man villains, but he's not a bad one. He's kind of like Two-Face if Two-Face actually was two different people to an extent.
Oh yeah, Two-Face just likes to talk to himself a lot.
Yeah, Mr. Negative has a whole thing where the good part knows about it and he tries to do as much good in the good side while the evil dude does as much evil. It's a unique...
Oh, wow.
It's a unique concept.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with that character.
He's very recent. He's from the Brand New Day era, which is an era of Spider-Man I really don't like. It was after One More Day where he sold his marriage to the devil, so...
Oh...
Again, an era of Spider-Man I really don't like, and I have an entire rant about that era at a later date.
Yeah, no, I can see why.
But besides that,
so we have a hot-looking PlayStation 4 Spider-Man video game coming up from Sony. What else we got?
Okay, so my next favorite besides that, look, I'm a Spider-Man fan, so I'm going to talk about that. But Daemon Ex Machina.
Is that'd be Demon Ex Machina because in Greek I believe the AE is still pronounced as E. So Demon Ex Machina. Yeah, I gotta admit, when I first saw that, I thought that it was an Armored Core game because a lot of the designs reminded me a lot of Armored Core 4.
Well, dude, it has the designs are by Shoji Kawamori.
Yeah, it looks great. Definitely looks action packed. Lots of like you're jetting around. You're very fast. You're a mecha, and you fight other mecha. So and presumably a Switch exclusive at the moment.
Oh, it's probably a Switch exclusive. I imagine. I imagine the only reason we're getting this game is because Nintendo.
I guess it's an indie title, but Nintendo's been killing it on the indie title front, surprisingly.
Genuinely, I've talked about this before. Nintendo, I do like their philosophy of getting the gameplay down first.
I agree that Nintendo's got a special way of doing things.
Well, it's a philosophy that doesn't always work to an extent. Like, there are some games where they go off way too much, like Metroid, the Metroid Forces game, I believe. I forget what it's called.
Federation Forces?
Federation Forces.
Federation Force was like this own weird thing where the studio or something, like they tried to pitch like a multiplayer game and it became that game. But Nintendo works kind of like in the reverse direction that a lot of game developers work.
Yeah.
Where they're like, we had this idea for gameplay, what franchise does it stick with? Whereas a lot of other developers are like, this is the franchise, what gameplay idea sticks with it?
Yeah, that's a really thin...
and I admit, like, that's the way I work too. Like, I'm think of like characters and narrative first, and then I'm like, what gameplay wraps around this, as opposed to gameplay first.
Well, it kind of reminds me. I'm going to go off on something. So, I'm not a big fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise.
Okay.
And now, something... Alright. So, my problem with the Assassin's Creed franchise... I think they put the identity onto everything, and I think that I want different games with their own identity from that culture, rather than this culture plus Assassin's Creed.
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying, definitely.
Because Assassin's Creed in Rome...
Yeah, they're like Assassin's Creed in Rome, Assassin's Creed in Egypt, Assassin's Creed in Italy, Assassin's Creed here, there, and everywhere.
I kind of would like just a Roman Centurion game or something. That sounds much more an interesting game to me.
Huh.
Now, there have been attempts to do that, but...
Rise, son of Rome.
Let's not talk about that.
You wish you were God of War.
But to me, it's like this. I don't like seeing the Assassin's Creed thing applied to everything.
Well, Assassin's Creed kind of falls into that trap where they've been going for such a long time. Because you know how Assassin's Creed started, right?
Yeah, I know.
It was just Prince of Persia, but someone had an idea for like a Prince of Persia spin-off where you're more of like a bodyguard to the prince, and Prince of Persia Assassins or something, and then they just were like, well, this is a different game, and Assassin's Creed happened, and now it's a huge thing. But God, they've been going for so many years, because many years ago I actually worked at a GameStop, and I think that was the year Assassin's Creed Brotherhood came out.
Oh God.
And I remember like looking at their storeroom in the back of the store that I was working at, and they had all these copies of like Assassin's Creed 2 that had already been turned in, and you could see the yearly cycle forming where, and GameStop loved this shit because they wanted people to turn in their games and buy next year's model. And you know, Ubisoft and like EA and like they play along to that. As much as big game developers try to kill that like reselling game model, they are a part of it because they make a new game every year. You want to not be a part of that? You got to be like Nintendo. You got to release a new game in your franchise every 5 years.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Like, Nintendo doesn't really innovate unless they find like a new outlet. Like, well, okay,
that's true.
Like, well, I probably should. That didn't come out right in my.
Well, I hear so like the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, I hear was a product of they had been fiddling around with Wii Motion Plus stuff from like Wii Sports Resort, I think it was, and they had like the fencing mini game in that game, and that's what they based Skyward Sword on. They were like, you can control the sword using the Wiimote, and Skyward Sword was an entire game based on that.
Yeah,
and otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
Now that makes sense.
And Breath of the Wild was like created out of like pressure to create this epic open world game because everyone else thought that's what Zelda should be.
It's kind of one of those things that just like, I understand Nintendo's philosophy to an extent, and that's one of the things of. But
well, that's Miyamoto, because Miyamoto's a massive bigwig. He's like the most long-standing bigwig now that everyone else is gone.
The dude's the Stan Lee of video games. Like, I'm comic book comparison, but I think it's really apt here.
I mean, like Stan Lee's cool, Miyamoto's cool. Although I will say, I think Miyamoto does kind of hold them back in certain respects, because you look at what they did with Star Fox Zero, and they forced that. They forced that gimmick pretty hard, where you had two screens, and one screen was used as the first-person controller, and that was used to aim your shots. And I think that was harder than a lot of players wanted to deal with. And there's I forget the name of it even. Like, there's the new game that's coming out. It's like the Battle for Atlas or something, where Star Fox is a guest appearance, but it's essentially a Star Fox game. And it makes me sad that that's not a Star Fox game, because I'm like, this is what fans wanted. Fans just wanted another Star Fox 64 with like new revamped levels, and they wanted Star Fox. They wanted, more action, more Star Wolf, more Andross, more battles. They don't want to deal with gimmick controls.
Well, that's
and Miyamoto won't let that happen.
Well, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like this with Miyamoto. He wants to see new ways of play.
Yeah.
And that's kind of and that's to an extent a good philosophy to have.
It works both for and against.
It's kind of one of those things of, well, sometimes you didn't really take it as far as you could, or maybe there's a way you can make the level different that would have been interesting or challenging, but that's neither here nor there. But my whole thing with Assassin's Creed is this, and ultimately, and that's where I was going, is that I like more games to have their own identity with their own unique settings, and I'm just tired of seeing Assassin's Creed.
Well, this reminds me of a good friend of mine had a debate probably about a year ago now about this very same thing, where we were talking about like Mega Man Legends and Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And his thing was, does this series, or does the next game in the series carry on the DNA of this series, or should it be a totally new IP? And I was playing devil's advocate at the time because I kind of enjoy doing that with him.
Yeah.
Where, in reference to Mega Man Legends, his opinion was that it should have been a new IP because the gameplay mechanics were very different from what Mega Man had been at the time.
Yeah.
And for me, I was playing devil's advocate, so I said that it's now canon. It is now part of that canon because they have chosen to add it to that. And I think both respects are valid. But the thing is, to borrow from you, the thing is that they've chosen to use an existing IP, and attach this gameplay to it, or attach this game to it, because people recognize that, like in the case of Mega Man Legends, people recognize Mega Man.
Yeah.
So they're going to pick up this game because it says Mega Man, even though the gameplay is totally different from what Mega Man is.
Well, I always thought...
Same thing with, like, Assassin's Creed. They're picking up that game because it says Assassin's Creed, not because it takes place in, like, Egypt or wherever.
Well, here's the thing. Like, even in the new... It wouldn't be if it was just, like, if it took place in Egypt. If it did have more different mechanics, fine. But the game still just looked the same Assassin's Creed as it ever did.
Well, they churn out one of those every year, right? So that's definitely
this is a new one for a while. They haven't been... They kind of calmed down a bit after... What was the last one? I forget. Because... Alright. Games?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this. Just all games.
All games. All games are listening now.
Just number your fucking sequels because it's easier to remember.
Well, I mean, that's where you get like Final Fantasy 15 and Mega Man 11, where they wear their numbers with pride. Apparently,
I don't like calling Mortal Kombat 9 Mortal Kombat. Hell,
it was Mortal Kombat 9, but there's like a Mortal Kombat X, which is presumably Mortal Kombat 10, right?
Yeah, it's 10.
I've never played Mortal Kombat, so I can't even talk.
Dude, I'm just tired of just.
Well, you get to the point where like they're trying to reboot series. Like you get, Tomb Raider, and then Tomb Raider the reboot, and then you get Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I don't know what the next one is, Revenge of the Tomb Raider or something.
I really don't like the new Laura.
You get to reboot everything, because the new God of War, what is technically God of War 4, is God of War. I kept hoping they were going to tack something onto that, like God of War Ragnarok or something.
God of War Ragnarok sounds like
I want that.
God of War, the Norse.
I mean, I realize that the story is more about like Kratos and his son Atreus, who is, spoiler alert, apparently Loki. But I was ready for Kratos to go murder the entire Norse pantheon in a single game. Considering God of War 3 takes out most of the Greek pantheon in one go.
So I'll tell you this, like, I'm just... God of War, like, should have a subtitle or something, or at the very least, I feel like it should get, like, one of the things I don't mind so much is it's like a thematic trilogy of some sort, where it's like denoting...
Well, apparently they worked very hard to make that game happen, because like Sony or like whoever was in charge was not really into the idea. They were like, Kratos' story is done. We don't want to continue it. And even then, when they were trying to develop it, like the story with the father and son with Atreus, like almost didn't happen apparently, because people were really skeptical of how that would work. But it happened, and apparently it's really good, and it's a game I really would like to play.
Yeah. But
haven't had a chance to get to it. I have a massive backlog of lots of stuff.
We all do, don't we?
Yeah, really.
Well, right now I'm going through Yakuza 0, and by the way, another announcement from E3. Well, it's leaked. We're getting the Fist of the North Star Yakuza game in America.
We're getting Hokuto ga Gotoku.
Actually, in America, it's going to be
hard to say in English.
Well, it's going to be called Lost in Paradise in English.
So, Fist of the North Star, Lost Paradise?
Yes.
That's much easier to say in English.
So, I'm just going to call it Lost Paradise for sake of ease.
I'm glad for that. I think that there's definitely some game series that are in Japan that we don't usually get, that that are really fascinating. Like I really find that kind of stuff fascinating, interesting.
I'm just glad that the Yakuza series managed to build up enough popularity that we're actually getting the games. And if they ever do like another Japanese sword style spin-off, I hope we get it in America.
Oh, what is sword style?
Yeah, there's 2 of them in Japan that never made it to America.
Okay. What are those?
There's I'm gonna go I'm trying to remember the Japanese name of Yakuza right now.
Ryuga Gotoko.
Ryuga Gotoko.
It means like a dragon.
Yes, like a dragon.
Or I guess presumably a man like a dragon.
Anyway,
it refers to like, because doesn't like Kiryu have a dragon tattoo on his back in later
yes.
games?
He's had it since the first game.
Or he's always got like since Yakuza 0, because that's the only one I played.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look this up to make sure I got the names right.
I think now again, a friend once told me that the reason why Japanese games are so wildly creative in a lot of places where Western games try to play it safe is because Western development studios, a lot of their paychecks and bonuses are based on the like Metascore or how many copies they can sell. Whereas in Japan, they get paid the same no matter what. And so he was like, if you're gonna get paid the same regardless of how this game does, aren't you gonna try to be weird and creative? And yeah, that answer speaks for itself.
All right, so there are.
So you get your Yakuzas, you get your Niers, you get all these different games.
So there are 2 samurai-style spin-offs of Yakuza, and they have a unique gimmick to them.
Samurai style. Alright, what are these?
They take the main characters from Yakuza, but they're not the same characters. So the actors and the character models are in Japan, but they're not the same characters. So you'll have Kiryu Kazuma as a samurai, and Majima.
Well, I mean, is he called Kiryu?
Well, the first one, Kenzan, he's called Miyamoto Musashi.
Oh, okay. So we're getting like historical fiction on this.
Yes, it's historical fiction, and they use, instead of like the typical fists, they use swords. So there's sword style combat instead. That's built off of the Yakuza beat 'em up engine. And there's 2 of them, Kenzan and Ishin. They're not sequels to each other, but we never got them in the West, and I'm kind of sad because they look really fun.
Oh, I mean, I guess I can see why, like, that's so related to Japan and Japanese history. They probably were like, this is not going to sell.
Well, if they didn't think the first Yakuza games would sell, so I just hope that if they make...
But wait, they redubbed the first Yakuza games with, like, Mark Hamill.
Well, they did.
And other Hollywood people.
Well, they tried initially, but Yakuza has a fascinating history as a series, but besides that, I'm just...
So what else did we see at E3? Or didn't see?
Okay, so Kingdom Hearts 3 got a huge push.
I can't believe that game's actually coming out. I assumed that game would be delayed until 2025, several years after the robot apocalypse, in which only machines would play the game.
Genuinely, I'm shocked that they managed to work in Frozen into the game.
I would be shocked if they didn't at this point.
I'm impressed.
They've been at it so long. They have to have Frozen. They have to have Moana.
Johnny Depp. They don't have Moana. We haven't seen her.
They don't have Moana? All right, I'm waiting for that. Kingdom Hearts is lost on me. Like, I was late to the party on that. The most I know of Kingdom Hearts is a friend of mine trying to explain the plot to me about time travel and clones, and my ex-girlfriend playing the original Kingdom Hearts game.
Alright, so I'll explain the Kingdom Hearts plotline very simple. Everyone is either Sora or Xenoheart.
That is the most straightforward explanation I've gotten.
Yes.
But it does line up with the previous explanations.
Yes, it does. Okay, love it.
But I'm surprised that's coming out. Other than that, I don't know. They didn't really show anything for Final Fantasy VII, right?
No, that was actually something people were expecting, but I understand.
People were kind of disappointed with that.
No, I understand why. They threw it out.
No, that is what I've heard. Like, there was at least a year or more of development work, possibly 2 years. They got thrown out because they were outsourcing it to a different studio, and it wasn't good.
That's kind of the thing, like...
And that's sad.
Dude, I don't know how.
It's very sad.
Look, the truth of the matter is, people just want to play Final Fantasy VII, same mechanics with updated character models.
I think so, and I think they're taking kind of the opposite approach because they're trying to change all the gameplay, but it's interesting to me because it sounds like they're trying to keep the story intact for every beat, which is kind of funny because there's certain parts of the story that I thought were silly at different points. Cloud dressing up, like cross-dressing to try to like fool a gangster at like an early point in the game.
Genuinely?
And I'm like, that stuff's not relevant to the overarching story, so I'd be okay if they cut that, but I understand if there's like diehard fans who are not okay with that.
Genuinely, like, you don't actually have to really do too much of a good job with that. So the idea of like making Cloud look messed up for that entire event would be hilarious anyway. But that's kind of the thing with that game. Like, there's a lot of important moments to that game that fans want to keep. And look,
that's just the example I use for, in my opinion, they could trim the story and still keep the overall effect of it.
Genuinely, I understand trimming the story to an extent, but on the other hand, I liked exploring avenues in Final Fantasy VII. That was actually a fun aspect of it. Seeing different dialogue with characters on occasion. To tell you the truth, perfect world, I would love to have my entire party be able to fight in that game and not switch them out.
That would take some
that would take doing.
finagling.
That would take a lot of finagling.
That would take some finagling.
That would take some finagling. That's like the...
I mean, as far as press conferences went, the one that I watched was Nintendo's. Because they seem the most relevant to me.
Genuinely, it was the best one out of the press conferences I saw.
They weren't even like live; they were just like doing like Nintendo Treehouse stuff, and most of it was dedicated to Super Smash Brothers. But before we go there, what else did they have? They had Fire Emblem. They had Mario Party.
Mario Party's back to classic board game style.
Mario Party is back to ruining friendships.
I kind of am happy about that, if I'm being honest. That sounds fun.
I haven't played Mario Party in a long time.
No, Mario Party's back
to new ways to ruin friendships.
Mario Party's back with pain sticks.
Yeah. Well, because like the most recent one, I think, had the characters on kind of like a go-kart or like a group carriage, and so you kind of like work together more than you worked against each other, but that's part of the fun. Yeah. That's like, oh, you bought a star, I just stole your star with the boo.
Oh, I guess
people off.
I guess we also have to talk about Fortnite is on the Switch as well, so
that's
who cares? Really,
I don't know. It's popular with the kids, apparently.
Look, Fortnite is just that big game that's popular now. It'll die off in a month or two, or a year, two.
I know. You watch them like announce the next battle royale thing.
Actually, we didn't get a lot of battle royale things this year. We have an announcement that Battlefield has a battle royale mode.
Good for them.
Fine, whatever.
I've never played Battlefield before. I don't intend to start.
I don't care. Look, I'm not a big shooter guy. Actually, we got a lot of shooters announced this year.
I like weird shooters that go off the beaten path. So, I played Metal Gear Online back when that was Metal Gear Solid 4. I played a lot of Transformers: The Fall of Cybertron.
Doom.
I played the most conventional shooter I ever played was like Killzone 2 and 3, where I would play multiplayer of that. But, that still has a radical sci-fi twist to it.
Dude, like, we're getting a new Halo game, apparently, which...
I've never had an Xbox, so no cares.
Halo...
No fucks given.
Gears of War...
I like Gears of War, though. Because Gears of War is like wild and comic booky enough for me to care, because that was like one of the first next gen games that a friend introduced me to. Like I had like a GameCube, and I remember like I was playing like Twilight Princess, Zelda Twilight Princess at the time, and then my friend introduced me to Gears of War, and that was the first next gen game of that time that impressed me, because he and I had a lot of fun playing co-op together.
You know what? That's fair.
He was Marcus Phoenix and I was Dom, and we were stopping and popping guys. And so Gears of War is just like cool and like very like outlandish and comic booky, and you get these dudes with these big roided up shoulders, and they're all like badass, firing guns everywhere.
I always thought of it like you're actually not humans; you're actually just giant gorilla men.
I mean, that's really what it is.
Like you just
Gears of War has like a sense of fun in that way. Like I found Halo kind of interesting. I know they have like a vast, sweeping space opera, but it's not quite as like. It's not as much of a party as what Gears of War is.
I don't know. Like, the thing with Halo, that they have this really great sci-fi backdrop that might be better used for something else. But, look...
Well, I think Halo has a more ambitious story than its games allowed to express. Whereas Gears of War has just, like, the right amount.
Well, yeah.
And also they have, Bender Bending Rodriguez voicing the main character.
I guess if we're talking about return of games, Devil May Cry 5 was announced.
Surprisingly, for as much as I love anime stuff, I've never actually played Devil May Cry.
I played a couple of the games, and I do have opinions on DMC to an extent.
Yeah, well, from what I understand, I think like Devil May Cry 3 is widely considered the best title of that series. And then DMC is kind of derided because that's where because originally it was Capcom, and it was a very Japanese developer, and then they pawned it off to Ninja Theory, which is, this like, what, they're like based in the UK or something.
Okay,
the people who did Heavenly Sword, female God of War game.
Ninja Theory is an interesting company to talk about because there's actually a fairly interesting
like opposite of Team Ninja, which is super Japanese.
Well, alright, so another game they did was Enslaved, which actually had some really good...
Oh, right, Enslaved, Journey to the West, where they had, like, Son Goku.
Well, one of the aspects about it is that it actually had a really well-written story, and they...
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah. And the writer was not put onto DMC, and you can tell that the writing suffered as a result.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay. So
I just know that there is a point in DMC where like a mop or something falls over Dante's head, and he looks kind of like the original Dante, and he looks at himself in the mirror, and he's like, "No way, man! Not in a million years." And he throws it away. And it's like an insult to fans.
That's genuinely not the worst part of that game. The worst part is this story moment to an extent.
Okay.
Okay. So Devil May Cry. One of the reasons it's stylized the way it is to feel fun. You're Dante, you wanna...
Well, yeah, you're this badass anime Demon Slayer dude.
Yeah, you're that badass anime Demon Slayer dude. No morals, you kill the demons.
You're apparently doing a public service.
Yeah, look, you're a good guy, you're killing the demons, that's fine. And you don't need much more than that. Your style, and you don't have to put a lot of thought into it. And, look, games can have their stories, but for some games... There's some themes you don't need to tackle, and DMC tackled this as a thing. Okay, so they have this resist theme in DMC, and I'm fine with resist themes. That's cool. Like, you're rebelling against society, blah blah blah. Fine.
Good.
All right, so the entire game is you're teaming up with Nero, Dante's brother, who in the previous continuity was a evil dude. He was your rival, Blue, blah blah blah. No, not Nero. Virgil.
Yeah,
Virgil.
Okay. I was gonna say because Nero was like the other player character in Devil May Cry 4.
I am dumb.
I do know that much. Okay, so you're teaming up with Virgil in DMC.
Yeah. So
okay,
sorry, I got confused. Virgil is Nero's. It's hinted at in DMC that Nero's Virgil's son. So.
Okay.
So
isn't he he's like the new main character in Devil May Cry 5, where he's got like a cyborg arm?
Well, he's the main character of DMC 4.
Yeah. Well, I remember people were like speculating. I was watching some videos of people speculating of who this character was, and right away I was like, oh, he's Nero, because I could tell right away that the Johnny Young Bosch was strong on the English dub of this one.
Well, let me put it this way: Johnny Young Bosch actually loves Nero a lot. I'll tell you why after I'm done with this bit.
Yeah, he seems like a fun guy.
Well, no, there's actually another reason for it, believe it or not, but I'll tell you in a sec.
It looks like Virgil or somebody cut off his arm, and so he replaced it with a cyborg arm because he had like a devil arm before that.
But what happened... Okay, so in DMC, you're, like I said, they have this resist theme, and you're teaming up with Virgil. Fine, okay.
Alright, Dante and Virgil.
So you fight, and you get near the main enemy of this game, and you're fighting, and you're in this one scene where you find the wife of the main bad guy of the game, or something.
Yeah, okay.
And she's pregnant.
Oh, no.
And Virgil takes out a sniper rifle and shoots her and kills her baby.
Right in the bagoo.
He literally performed a sniper abortion in the game. That you helped
Okay, so
facilitate.
in DMC, which is... people at one point might have called it Devil May Cry 5, but it's not. So DMC, right there.
Yeah.
Okay. That is borderlining on the realm of good taste.
It gets better. You see her crying, cradling her stomach as she falls on the ground.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dante, and you help facilitate it as the character. So the game forces you to help
Dante's
facilitate.
like, I'm so sorry. My brother is a bastard.
No, he's just like, what the hell, man? And then the game...
Damn it, bro. This is why we can't have nice things.
This is what... It's portraying Virgil as this, you know...
Huh.
It's trying to be like, I had to do what I did, but they don't really get a good idea of the threats in the game, and the story in DMC has a lot of holes, but that's the worst part of that game for me. It's just that entire sequence.
I mean, I can see why. There's various games that like push the realm of good taste, and
that I would call needlessly edgy. Okay.
Yeah, I've definitely like reminds me of like other games like what Dante's Inferno or something like that, where they. I feel like these games that like overblow their hand in terms of edginess never quite succeed because people eventually don't. They're not good as games. They're just good as like. They're not even good. They're just like edged pieces.
It's edge without purpose, and you don't want that as a theme.
Yeah, definitely.
But the thing with like I said, DMC is supposed to be fun, and now I'm explaining why Johnny Young Bosch loves Nero.
Okay.
Nero is him motion captured with his martial arts moves.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. So he actually likes that because he feels like it's actually him in the game.
Oh, definitely.
So that's
because he was the Black Power Ranger for a time.
Yeah, he actually is
he was like 20 or something.
He was actually a martial artist. So to him, Nero is like, oh yeah, it's me in the game. That's my movements. That's my.
That's fabulous. I hope that's the case with the new one too.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny. Dante's main actor, of all things. So this is my joke with that game.
Yeah.
All right, Dante's actor in Japan. I forget his name, so I'm going to look this up. His actor from DMC 3 onward.
Yeah.
And the guy who motion captured. I'm going to look up his name.
Well, I'm surprised because for a Japanese game, usually they would have Japanese stunt actors doing the motion capture. And so for you to say that Johnny Youngbosch, a American actor, is the one doing the capture for Nero is interesting.
Yeah, no, that's No, it's an interesting thing, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm looking this guy up, because his English actor, Ruben Langdon is the main guy who plays him usually nowadays.
Who plays Dante, yeah.
So Ruben Langdon, back in the 90s, was on a Japanese live-action television show that was adapted into Beetleborgs Metallics.
So, is this a case of kind of like a Western person living in Japan who got involved with this?
Yes.
Because Capcom has done stuff like that before. Like, I think for like Mega Man X7 and like some other games, Mega Man ZX Advent maybe, they got a bunch of like English voice actors who lived in Japan to do the voice acting.
So,
whereas you get like some of the later games in the Mega Man X series, they got the Ocean Group, which is a Canadian dub group too.
So let me put it this way. Alright, so he started doing live action Japanese television shows, and the one he did was a show called B Fighter Kabuto. And
right, the Beetleborgs.
Yes, it was turned into Beetleborgs. And he was one of the cameo Beetleborgs in that show. The Dragonfly one in Metallics, if you want to ever look that one up. And the thing about Metal Heroes is that it actually focuses on hiring stunt actors instead of like actors for its roles. So a lot of the people play the face and suits at times. Except
so it's
it's
the same people. That's neat.
Yeah, it's a big part of it's the appeal of the franchise is that they're actually stuntmen. So Devil May Cry 4 is the Black Power Ranger versus a Beetleborg.
Well, when you put it that way, it's amazing.
Yes. So if you ever want to, you have a Power Ranger versus fighting a Beetleborg.
So what else did we see at E3?
Well, there's the Resident Evil 2 remake, which I'm actually interested in.
Yeah, that's neat. Again, I mostly saw Nintendo, so we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which John and I have been going back and forth for a while now about is this Super Smash Bros. 5 or is this Super Smash Bros. 4.5? And my argument was for Smash Bros. 4.5 because I strongly believed that they were just going to port over Super Smash Bros. 4, like Super Smash Bros. 4 Wii U, and just like port that over the way they did Mario Kart and turn it into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
I'm going to actually argue against that, if only because of what I saw. And this is my argument. The heavy change and focus on the mechanical changes of the fighting.
Yeah, it changed a lot more than I thought it would. That's for sure. They brought back directional air dodging, which is similar to Smash Bros. Melee. They have changed up a lot of characters in other ways. I'm a little surprised that normally they keep the Zelda characters from each franchise, because I love Zelda. So they keep each Zelda character from like the most recent Zelda game, because in Melee it was Ocarina of Time characters, in Brawl and Smash 4 it was Twilight Princess characters, because Ganon didn't have a Skyward Sword character.
Yeah.
But now it's like Link is from Breath of the Wild, and Zelda is from A Link Between Worlds apparently, and Ganondorf is from Ocarina of Time, and so they're like mixing it up and they're changing characters' moves in that regard. And each character has like subtle differences. Like there's so many different tweaks they made to it. So there's still a lot of Smash 4 in there.
I agree to an extent, but there's a lot of mechanical changes that I think are important to note. Like, one thing, you can actually do something about, like, trophies. Assist trophies.
Oh yeah, you can KO assist trophies now, which is kind of nice.
You can... There are a lot of tweaks to characters. A lot of thought put into it. And they're also bringing back all the characters!
Yeah, I am most surprised about Solid Snake. Because, while I love Metal Gear, I actually didn't start, like, way back in the day with Metal Gear Solid. My first introduction to Solid Snake was in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And I'm sitting there, and there was a moment I was hanging out with some friends of mine, and I was like, well, what's this guy doing here? He's not really related to Nintendo. Wouldn't a better Konami character have been, like, Bill Reiser from Contra? And my friend just kind of stares at me for a second, and he's like, you haven't played Metal Gear? And the very next day, he arrives at my door with his copy of Metal Gear Solid for me to play.
Oh, God.
And so that's how I got into it.
I wouldn't mind talking about an interesting game to an extent. I would love to do Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes sometime.
I have thoughts on that game, but that's for another day.
Oh, fair enough. I would love to hear
I have lots of thoughts. But so the fact that we're seeing Snake again, and Starwolf, and Pichu,
and Snake
like,
is back.
Everybody's coming back,
and David Hayter is back as Snake as well.
You mean the only voice of Solid Snake? Yes.
Yes.
the only voice of Snake is returning. I would say that what kind of determines whether or not this is like a proper Smash Brothers 5 or like Smash 4.5 for me is going to hinge on what we see them doing with the different modes at this point.
We'll see what...
If we get like an adventure mode or something that's unique, then maybe I'll concede like, yeah, this is a Smash 5. But there's still, like, the biggest changes we were going to see was like, between the original Smash Brothers and Melee, there was a lot of changes that happened. And then Melee and Brawl. But between even Brawl and Smash 4, there weren't that many changes mechanically. Just in general, the number of changes decreases over time because the gap between like the technology they're working on changes.
Yeah,
and it's much smaller.
Well, it's worth pointing out that they have the X-Climbers back now because I think they found a way to finally make them work again.
Well, no, the real reason why Ice Climbers weren't in Smash 4 was because they didn't work on the 3DS, and they were determined to have the same roster between 3DS and Wii U.
Yeah. I know that.
And that's what it was. And like Pokemon Trainer is back. Charizard is no longer a separate entity, and he's back with Pokemon Trainer because they don't have 3DS to hamstring them.
Yeah.
So now you get the full thing back, and they were like, oh, whatever disability that the Pokemon Trainer had previously, where if you overused a certain Pokemon, they became weaker. That's gone too, and they're like, just like play your favorite. So that's really cool, and I'm really curious if they're going to turn Sheik and Zelda back into one entity, because the Zelda that they've chosen is not one that ever became a Sheik. Whereas the Sheik they had previously been using was an unused character design for Twilight Princess.
Ah, fair enough. So, it's one of those things. I can easily see, like, this going over interestingly, and like I said...
we have Ridley.
Ridley, well...
I'm annoyed by that slightly, just because I'm like... People were, like, so hyped about it. Like, oh, we need Ridley, because Bowser's in Smash Brothers, and Ganondorf's in Smash Brothers. We need Ridley. And I'm like... Ridley is not actually that important of a character. I want him, so I guess they got him.
I guess.
So good for you!
I think maybe they could... Well, how are you going to work in Mother Brain?
I mean, Ridley appears in more games than Mother Brain does, but... I mean, my thing about Ridley is that he's that like monstrous boss you fight now and again in Metroid, but he's not nearly as recurring or doesn't have nearly as much personality as Bowser or Ganondorf.
To be fair, if you go into the backstory and him being the killer of Samus' parents, that actually does have...
I mean, I guess it's like in a manga somewhere. I don't know.
Dude, like,
As a Metroid fan who predominantly likes the Metroid Prime games, that's not relevant.
That's fair, I guess.
Because all that, like, Japanese stuff is relevant to if you liked Super Metroid and if you liked Metroid Other M. Yeah. This is one case where the Western continuity got the better end of the deal.
Okay.
Thanks, Retro Studios. You're the best.
Hey, dude, look, I'm just saying, in general, people want it. Though, admittedly, if we're going to have Ridley, we should have Dr. Wily.
See, I mean, I'm sure Ridley's going to be fun to play as a fighter because they always make the characters fun.
Alright.
But you don't need everybody to be a fighter.
I mean,
Dr. Wily is better as a stage hazard.
Hey.
Dropping the yellow devil on people.
Okay. Alright, if there was going to be another Mega Man character as a character in Smash, who would you want it to be?
Zero.
Besides Zero.
Without hesitation, Zero.
Besides Zero. Like, that's obvious.
Besides Zero, Zero.
So, the Zero EXE. Cool.
No, the Zero.
Zero.
No, because it doesn't make any sense otherwise.
I get it.
Because if you did Mega Man X, he'd probably have kind of a similar play style to Zero.
I'm talking...
Would you do Battle Network? Would you do Legends?
You know, I would kind of like Cutman as a joke character you could play as.
Like an assist trophy, I guess. Like Man was an assist trophy in the last game.
Oh, true.
But Zero makes the most sense of anything. And in my opinion, Zero Series Zero, because he is the most unique.
That's fair. No, I would... No, what I'm thinking... Like, I'm trying to think of just, like, a villain from...
for Mega Man, they added Proto Man and Bass to the final Smash animation.
Oh.
Which is nifty.
Hey, fair enough.
Yeah, you have, like, all the Mega Man lined up, and then behind them is, like, Proto Man and Bass, and because they've kind of, like, I guess, not even in the intervening years, they were already, like, major characters in Mega Man.
God, it kind of makes me sad with Mega Man and Bass on the Game Boy Advance. That game kind of...
Yeah, well, that game had some porting issues.
Well, the main way of... It's hard to beat the game as Bass because the way it's very hard to activate his dodge mechanic in that game.
Well, he can shoot in 8 directions, he can dash, so what do you think of?
In general, it's actually hard to activate his dash in that game.
You have to double tap forwards, don't you?
Yeah.
On a Game Boy Advance?
Yeah.
Well, because the original game was an SNES game. And so from what I've heard, like, the worst issue that they had in porting that game over was the screen crunch, because they kind of zoomed everything in, so you just didn't get a full picture of things. There were hazards just hanging off the side of the screen that you'd die on, spikes and what have you.
Yeah, no, that happened.
That's... But from what I've heard of even before that, the game was not the best Mega Man game.
It was okay.
Definitely on the more difficult side of things, with more awkward design choices.
It's definitely a more difficult Mega Man game. It has very nice sprites for it.
But, if I were to choose, another Mega Man character for Smash Brothers, it will always be Zero, and I think that he's got a lot of cool moves that he could do. His B up, his B up recovery move speaks for itself, because that would definitely be a Rise of Fire slash.
God, actually, this reminds me of something. They introduced a concept. I think they're calling it shadow characters or
echo characters. Where because like Princess Daisy and Lucina is considered an echo character at Marth.
Yeah.
They finally put a name to the clone characters that people have had for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and like Falco would be
Echo Fox.
Yeah, but Starwolf, he's kind of different. Now it's interesting to me that they were like, oh, this is Starwolf based on his design from Star Fox Zero, because I thought he had a really interesting design where he's got like a jacket, and then he's got like these really like spiky boots, and I'm like, we don't get to see that in Star Fox Zero. We just have a portrait of him like talking harshly at us in that game. So they can tell us whatever they want, and they're like, this is Wolf's design. But it's nice to see him back, because I thought he was more unique than Falco was.
We'll see what happens with Smash.
People want Crystal though, who was apparently ripped from the canon.
Well, I'm not going to go into that debate, because that is such a weird freaking debate.
I mean, Star Fox is the franchise that reboots itself every other game, so...
Yeah, that's fair. But I'll talk about this, though.
Yeah.
I do want to dedicate a little time to Fire Emblem The Three Houses.
Okay.
So...
I haven't played Fire Emblem since Path of Radiance, so this is not necessarily my talking ground.
I'll talk about it a little bit, because I do find it interesting. So, alright. So the last Fire Emblem game was Fates, and that had an interesting idea of playing as different factions.
Now, they had multiple versions of that, right?
Yeah. One is you play as different factions. Where one you play as the Kingdom Noir, and one where you play as the Kingdom
one where you're Japan and one where you're Europe.
That game has a problem. That game has one big problem, is that the Hoshino Kingdom, the Japan Kingdom, is much nicer.
They're the good guys.
They're kind of like unequivocally the good guys. Like, there's some morality here and there.
You get what was the other kingdom?
Nor. Who are basically like, we're dark, evil fantasy kingdom.
Yeah, but they had the purple-haired lady with the boobage.
Well,
I liked her.
They are much more interesting, if I'm being honest, than the kind of clean-cut team of Japan. And that's not...
Well, that's, in my opinion, a strength of Fire Emblem, is that they have the opportunity to portray some, like, gray area where the enemies you're fighting are either, like, recruitable, or maybe they're just not so bad.
Well, that's kind of...
But they're fighting for their country, and so you still have to defeat them.
That's fair. I like that aspect too, but I'm trying to say this. I hope that Video the Three Houses, there's no obvious good guy.
The obvious good guys. Well, we'll have to see, because there's probably some marketing involved with all this.
I imagine... So if I'm going to say this, what I imagine Three Houses is going to be like is you're going to get your main character, and he chooses a path to go down to.
Now, what I'm interested in is more that they showed us animations where you go into a battle animation and a character attacks another. It's like zooms in from, like, you're on high, and then it zooms in and you see the animation where the character attacks another enemy. But they've shown some where that character is accompanied by a squadron, where, like, either multiple archers or mages or something, and they're all performing an attack together. And I'm wondering if
are we going full Advance Wars here?
Yeah, are they going to have, like, a whole tactical element to it? Well, I mean, more tactical than usual, where it's not just a hero, but a hero is accompanied by a squad, and maybe that squad has its own properties that you have to work
Keep
with.
track of?
Or will it be a squad system where 2 heroes end up working together, and then the rest is kind of like window dressing?
We'll see what happens. I'm kind of fascinated to see where Fire Emblem goes, if I'm being honest.
It's interesting, and like I haven't played Fire Emblem in years just because like it's not coincided with the consoles that I've owned. Like I didn't own a 3DS until I think after Fire Emblem.
I was a huge fan of Awakening.
It was after Awakening came out. I forget if I had a 3DS before or after the other one.
Well, anyway, Fates, like I said, I like the idea of Fates more than the execution. And I hope they actually add in more gray morality into this game.
Yeah, the Fire Emblem definitely likes to mess around.
Story-wise at least. But besides that, with Nintendo and general stuff.
Yeah.
Nintendo.
What else did they show at E3 besides? We got Smash Brothers. We have
Fire
Emblem. We already mentioned Demon X Machina looks cool. That's about it.
I have to actually see the Devolver Digital Conference at some point.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen anything of it. I don't know what it's like, but I know it's probably going to be weird as fuck.
Yeah, when it comes to E3, I'm kind of like the after-the-fact person. Like, I won't watch their conferences live. I'll just like read the headlines later. And if something catches my eye, that's when I'll dip in and watch the videos. Except for with Nintendo, because I have grown up with Nintendo and I love it, and so I do want to know what's going to happen.
Well,
but knowing that they're not going to come out with a new Zelda for many a year, I'm pretty safe with not watching it.
Well, that's kind of the thing with like E3 right now, is that it didn't have a lot going on to it. I mean, there's Bethesda stuff, but we're getting a multiplayer Fallout, which I'm like not a fan of.
Yeah, Fallout's gotta get that multiplayer box.
I don't know. Like Bethesda loses me on a lot of things, and it doesn't help that I'm not a fan of their philosophy in games.
And what would you say that their philosophy is that you're not a fan of?
Mod it to make it better.
Oh, yeah. It's like that joke there where people are like, imagine if Bethesda was like a steak restaurant and you go in there and you come back with a steak that's like half done. But don't worry, just outside the restaurant, there's a dozen chefs ready to cook your steak and put a delightful garnish on it.
I mean,
that's what it is. They half cook their game and then they send it out and the modding community takes care of the rest.
It's kind of a joke, but I don't. Let me put it this way.
It's kind of true. Well, here's the thing about Bethesda, is that Gamebryo game engine they've been working with for like the past 10 years or more, they haven't updated it a whole lot, and they really are overdue for a change of game engine to keep it with modern times. Because even Fallout 4 was built on that same game engine that like fucking Morrowind, like Elder Scrolls 3 was built on.
Well, we're getting the Elder Scrolls 6 soon, so
we'll find out if it's built on a 15-year-old game engine or not.
So, alright, look, I'm not like
if it has the same bugs and potato-faced NPCs who stare at you blankly in dialogue trees.
I'm just not a fan of the whole idea. Look, when I get a video game, I'm hoping it's a mostly complete product. That's what I want.
Well, I mean, in defense of Bethesda, their games are so large and have so many variations within them. It is pretty difficult to kind of like polish that in certain places. But then you kind of look at some of the other games that have come out since then that are open world, like you get like Horizon Zero Dawn or The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. And those games are like polished to a mere sheen.
Well, I'll say this, like, I don't know how it's going to come out, but I am looking forward to seeing how Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out.
Yeah, there's definitely that. Though my thought is just that Elder Scrolls 6, it's going to be good and it's going to sell, even if there's a bunch of bugs in it.
Look, I'm not going to say...
I have some friends that work in the QA department at Bethesda, and so I can harass them if it comes out buggy. They're going to sit there and they're going to be like, well, we wrote up these bugs, but no one listened to us.
Well, I also have a friend who works in the QA department as well.
Very nice.
So
we'll all hear the same tale.
Well, maybe. But my big thing with Bethesda is I want they're not really the games I'm looking for usually, and it's kind of like this. Often I feel like they make big maps, but they're there's very few actual important things to go see. But that's just how I feel. I'm sure there's a lot. There's only a lot you can do in those games. It's just that.
Yeah, because I'm kind of almost the opposite. Like I really enjoyed Fallout 3 in particular. Was a lot of fun to go around and see all the things that were indeed on the map.
Yeah, and it's not the worst thing ever. It's more just like I'm like, okay, they exist and they have their own niche.
I like them, but definitely I grew up with like the Japanese games, so like with open world games, I love the Xenoblades, I love the Zeldas.
Like today, sure as I'm like as much as I've been
a little more colorful, there's a little more like anime vibrancy to that.
Well, like one of the reasons I've been digging Yakuza is that there's just like it's not the biggest map ever, but there is a lot you can do on that, and that's kind of what I like about it.
Well, Yakuza embraces a certain weirdness to things.
Dude, I love the telephone mini game in Zero so much.
If anybody knows how to answer the phone, Kiryu does.
Yes, but no, what I like about it is just the pure life of it. But I'm probably going to enjoy Red Dead Redemption as an open world game because I really enjoyed that game a lot. I liked the Western setting.
Redemption too. It's definitely a setting you don't see a lot of these days.
Wild West. Okay, let me put it this way. I would love to see more Wild West and film noir settings in a lot of things.
Yeah, what we see in games these days, there's a lot of like modern day, we're shooting at things stuff, and then like miscellaneous other things. I guess like high fantasy. You have your like high fantasy games.
I would like more detective stories in games. I think that's a genre that could be used to explore more, or even in the AAA sphere. Like if LA Noir, not LA Noir, what is it? LA Noir was Rockstar Film Noir game.
Yeah, that was built in the Grand Theft Auto engine.
If that wasn't such a monument, if that wasn't such a weird development history, I would have loved to see more of it.
Yeah, no, I've heard of the weird development of that game and how things did not go according to plan.
No, it did not. But I'm not
well for the developers.
But like,
it's too bad because it looks like it's a very good game. It's too bad people had to suffer for this creation.
It's a solid game and concept. And, you know, I like the film noir genre a lot. We don't see a lot of that genre anymore, which is kind of sad because that is almost a wholly original American genre. Yes, it is. Look it up.
Yeah. It's interesting that you point that out. You have, like, Japan often kind of plays to its tastes. They play to their strengths. Where they'll have like these RPGs that feature like school kids and magic stuff happening around them, and that's like distinctly Japanese. But then in the West, I guess we got like all these like shooters or fantasy games, but there's certain genres that we could definitely cultivate they're distinctly ours that we could use.
Genuinely, I like playing in a genre I call Weird West, where it's like Western, but it's a fantasy.
Weird West. Is that anything like Wild Wild West?
Well, to an extent, yeah. It's steampunk. It's a bit more steampunky.
We have some aliens in the Wild West.
I would love. Well, just imagine Lord of the Rings, but to the cowboys.
We need to go on this. Drive this cattle herd into Mordor.
Or something. Like, there's a lot of ideas you can explore with the culture of America. Like, we even have some of our own interesting legends. Like, imagine finding the Jersey Devil or something.
No, that reminds me of when I was playing, like, Fallout 3 the first time I encountered a Deathclaw, and my brother was watching me play, and I killed the Deathclaw. He's like, what the hell was that? And I'm like, Jersey Devil. There.
No, but that's kind of the thing with, like, America has, like, this unique culture and history to it that I think can be used to explore more in our own myths and legends. Like,
which suddenly makes me feel weird that Ubisoft, being a Canadian developer, did the Assassin's Creed game
They're
set
French.
in the American Revolution.
They're French.
I mean, are they also in France? I know that they have like a
No, they're
big
specifically
setup in
France.
Canada, in Canada.
Ubisoft is a French company.
Okay.
Okay, let me put it this way. One of the reasons I was looking forward to Brotherhood was for one reason.
Yeah.
It was set in the French Revolution. One of the most stupidly chaotic times in history.
Wait, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was set in that time?
It was
No, because Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
Okay, what was the one that was horribly glitchy?
No, that was a different one. Because there was like Assassin's Creed 2, and then there was Assassin's Creed like Brotherhood and Revelations. They were all part of the Ezio trilogy, so they were all set in like Italy.
So I'm gonna look this up because now I'm just like.
So it's like Assassin's Creed like 5 or whatever. Because 4 was the Black Flag, where it was the pirates, and then 5 was the French Revolution.
I'm looking this up because I don't remember.
We must fact check.
I have to fact check it. I'm not. Okay. Assassin's Creed. What? There's so much.
There's so many Assassin's Creed games. You can't even find which one you're looking for.
Italian Resident. Unity.
Assassin's Creed Unity. Okay, that's what it was.
It wasn't Brotherhood. It was
I have not played any Assassin's Creed, so I can't talk about it.
Okay. Let me put it this way. The French Revolution, one of the reasons I was excited was that it was
Even off France.
It was a chance for Ubisoft to do something with their own history,
Yeah.
their own culture. Which, and again, the French Revolution is a particular point in history ripe with intrigue and horror and everything you could want in any.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of points in history are right for that, but definitely that one.
Yeah,
History is full of a lot of things getting fucked up.
Dude, that's kind of the thing. But the French Revolution in particular is a part of history that I find utterly fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it would have been a great setting for a game. And I'm like, okay, Assassin's Creed, this is perfect. And it's also their own country.
Yeah, is that the one where they have glitches where people's faces turn inside out?
And yeah, here's the thing. I would have been fine with that, but the story isn't that great in that one either.
That's too bad.
It's one of those things just like it's
because
I
think Assassin's Creed 4 was on the transition between like the two generations, because I think it was on PS3 and PS4.
Yes, it was.
Whereas that one was like full on PS4, like next generation, and they were trying to do more with it as a result, and that's probably why they had trouble with it.
Yeah, dude.
There's always this like growing pains that take place where the first couple of games that come out for a console generation are usually kind of in different places.
Well,
and then after like the first year or two, that's when things start to get real good.
Well, they also tried to make it more multiplayer in that one too.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, like,
turn your single player game multiplayer. What you thinking of, guys?
Especially because that, again, French Revolution. I mean, my God,
Everybody is stabbing everybody in the butt.
it's true. Like, again, I really wanted that game because it was them exploring their own history, and I was excited because, again, like, I think that like a culture showing its culture and talking about stuff is a fascinating thing. Like,
I think so. I mean, I wish I had any connection to culture in a proper sense. Cause I had a moment where I was talking with this one girl that I met, and she was like super big on like, oh, I'm part Native American and part this and that and the other thing, and she was like a million different things, and she was like really connected to her culture, and she like asked me like, what are you? And I'm like, I'm a white guy. And she's like, don't you care about your heritage? And I'm like, no, not really. And so like it's interesting to me how like different cultures choose to interpret themselves, or how different cultures don't care about themselves.
Well, like I said, if I ever get to do a chance to do this graphic novel, one of the stories I want to do is about the Jewish mafia. It's a very underexplored history in America
that is something I've never even heard of, honestly.
Honestly, it's kind of shocking. When I was a kid, I actually didn't think that was a thing, and you have to understand, like,
yeah.
You don't ever see movies about it.
You hear about the Italian mafia.
You hear about the Italian, the Irish.
Yeah, definitely.
But the Jewish one? No, that's out there for some people.
That's a group that I think seems very non-threatening to most people.
It's true, but it's kind of one of those things I do want to explore a bit. And
there you go. You're exploring a heritage.
Yeah, I'm exploring a heritage that
we've gotten way off the E3 topic, Space Cadets.
Because E3 is just showing
stuff. Because E3 is actually pretty boring.
Look, Nintendo got the most interesting things.
And the most interesting thing was the fact that Snake was back in Smash Brothers.
Yeah. And that's the truth of the matter, that this E3 was overall...
They're still running, so we're going to find out like if there's anything more that they have to show, but... okay, so because we've been going for a very long time, actually.
Yeah.
So before we go, is there something that you really wish you had seen from E3 that they didn't show?
Now, I've been watching one thing, and if I was going to say if there's one thing I wish I saw from E3, and this is the truth of the matter, is that there's rumors about this,
okay.
and I would have liked it, is a Rocksteady Superman game.
Rocksteady's... Oh man, that takes me back to like when Arkham Asylum came out, and I was like, man, it'd be cool if they made a Superman game that was this good.
Yeah, no, there's rumors about it, and I'm
like they exist in the same part of my mind. I watched the Batman Superman Adventures from like Toonami and stuff.
Dude, I own the DVDs, like fuck. I would.
The Superman the animated series, and then later on Justice League. That was great stuff. But I accept at this point that Superman's probably not going to get a good video game until whenever. Until Hell freezes over, I guess.
Like, I would, there's been consistent rumors from consistent sources that that's a thing that's happening.
Huh.
So at the very least...
I didn't know that Rocksteady still existed, even.
Where
have they been all this time?
Apparently stopping to do Batman and doing other DC projects, so who knows.
I mean, I guess for me, the two things that I wanted, the biggest thing that I wanted was something on Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, sure.
Beyond the logo. Because they went for the really obvious stuff, I feel like, right now. Like, Smash Brothers was obvious for the Switch, and people have been predicting this for a long time. Fire Emblem didn't really show us anything surprising. But, like, whatever else they had is not all that unique. But then, the other thing I wanted personally, and this is mostly me, is I want Xenoblade X for the Switch as a port, because I thought that was a fantastic game that was sort of hindered by hardware that wasn't quite up to the task.
Alright. I'll say this, there is one other thing I would have wanted from Square Enix that I would have liked would be a new Final Fantasy project trying to move the series forward in some way.
I would like a Final Fantasy project trying to move the series backwards, as in moving the series back to its RPG roots. With active time battle systems and classical mechanics.
I wouldn't mind if Final Fantasy did another tactics game at this point.
I would like that.
Instead of
yeah.
I'm tired of all this future crap Final Fantasy's been doing for the past couple years.
Well, they've been stuck in like cyberpunk land ever since Final Fantasy VII.
They've switched back and forth on that to an extent. Like, let's be honest, the cyberpunk land is only really with 13 and 14, 13 and 15.
I mean, I would say that 7, 8, 10, and 13 all had their sci-fi cyberpunk elements.
10 is basically beach fantasy, though.
10 goes to beach fantasy.
Like, I would say that 10 does have some cyberpunk elements, but it's very minor in comparison to other ones.
Well, I mean, I don't care what like the plot line is. I just want to see them go back and
do the classic
the classic thing. Like, even if you have like fancy graphics, and I know I mentioned this somewhere in our like Chrono Trigger episodes, where I think that Square could easily go back and make like a more classical RPG, even using sprites, and people would eat that stuff up. I don't know why they don't think of it.
I actually thought it would be kind of hilarious if they did, like... So, in Final Fantasy 15, to represent your character sometimes, they have, like, classic 16-bit sprites for what they would look like in Final Fantasy 6.
Yeah.
And I kind of will admit this, I kind of want to play the entirety of 15's plot in 16-bit.
I mean, that would make it more coherent, right?
Probably, because it's less, like, bullshit you have to go through.
Yeah.
Like... But
so that's so we got that out of Square. We didn't get any information on Final Fantasy VII, but we did get information on Kingdom Hearts.
There's one Final Fantasy game I would love if they would ever make it, and this is a dream.
Okay.
I would love to see if they would do that art the Yoshitaka Amano art style entirely for a game.
So, like, kind of a 3D game, are you thinking of? Like
3D, 2D, or something. I would love to see.
Well, because Amato's art style has a lot of, like, I want to say gestural strokes to it, and that would be a pretty strange looking game in 3D.
Oh yeah,
it would be visually stunning if they succeeded,
dude.
I want to also see, it would be difficult to pull off.
I want to see what that would look like.
I would love to see that too. I think they could very much call back to Final Fantasy's roots.
Yeah.
And do a very unique game out of that. But that might be riskier than what they're willing to do at the moment.
Oh, dude, it's fucking hell risky.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so that's E3, everybody. Not really a lot happened, but we talked a lot about it anyways.
Well, we talked a lot about it. The fun part about E3 is not actually talking about E3. It's talking about why is E3 a thing.
Oh, man, I mean, E3 was a big deal many years ago. You get moments with, wasn't that where Satoru Iwata gave his I am a gamer speech?
Look, we got a lot of memes from it. Like, my body's ready for more memes.
My body is ready, or you get that moment where Miyamoto comes up on stage with the Master Sword and Hylian Shield, and it's just like, Zelda!
Actually, that kind of brings up a point with it. Like, even back then, Nintendo just is such more memorable and
they've been at this for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, it's better than what EA tries to do with. So, did you see how they announced the new Star Wars game? It's like this. So, here's my mic. So, game developer, tell us about your new Star Wars game now that you're in the crowd.
It's a game about Star Wars.
Good going! And that's what we heard about. We didn't even get a trailer. We don't have a logo. We just have a name, and that's how they announced it.
Oh my god. There's a reason why I don't watch these things anymore.
EA is hilariously incompetent. Dude, to bring it back...
Like we were kind of saying earlier.
No, okay, I have one more story.
Right,
Let me go for this.
Alright.
It was dead silent during everything with the sports presentation. Dead.
No one cared.
Exactly.
They're like, oh, hey, EA Sports for another year. Surprise, surprise?
Dude, everything.
It would be imagine the hush that would fall over the crowd if they announced that there were no more EA Sports titles.
Dude, it was kind of bad and embarrassing.
2018 was the last year of EA Sports. We are discontinuing it. And then the crowd goes wild. Yay! Now we make real games!
No.
That don't have monetization and microtransactions in them.
Actually, EA made a point of saying they don't have loot boxes in anything.
Well, yeah, they are coming up from, the depths of defamation.
But what happened, here's what I mean with the sports team thing. They had a winner of Madden. They didn't cheer. They tried so hard, and it fucking failed.
It's EA, and given the past year or so, I am completely unsurprised.
Well, I'll tell you this. EA has stripped me of my faith in BioWare and Anthem, which just was like...
EA stripped BioWare. BioWare may talk about how without EA they would have gone under a while ago, and I do totally believe that that's true, but by now they've definitely stripped that out. And they stripped out the Mass Effect people so they can make Anthem, and that's why Mass Effect Andromeda suffered.
I'll say this, I actually don't believe that.
Really?
Well, I have a couple reasons for that. And this is going to sound weird to an extent.
Okay.
But, not a lot of people remember this, but Microsoft actually footed the bill for Mass Effect.
The original Mass Effect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That game sold huge.
Yeah, I remember it was a big Xbox title. That Mass Effect 2 did not come to PlayStation until later.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because that's the only one I played, because I had PlayStation 3, I didn't have an Xbox.
I don't know exactly what BioWare's issues were at the time, but they had deals with LucasArts. They were not a company in that much financial strain, if it seems. But
definitely, game by game, the game industry can be pretty difficult and cutthroat. So I can see why they would say that EA helped them out. But it's sad when it came to, because I know that Mass Effect Andromeda was meant to be like its own trilogy, and it definitely got cut short, and people have a massive number of complaints with it. It's too bad, because I think there's some combination of mismanagement and executive mismanagement. Basically, two kinds of mismanagement.
Well, that's kind of the thing with EA, is that EA has a lot of mismanagement. And look, maybe it's true.
Oh, absolutely. Because EA, when they go to make a game, they have dollar signs in their eyes, whereas some other more, honest companies really do want to bring an innovative experience to people.
I always have fun. Okay, my favorite game with EA each year is, which fan base do they piss off the most?
Yeah. Whichever fan base that they have a license to, and so it's Star Wars these days.
Actually, talk to the Command and Conquer fan base.
Oh God, you're right. Yeah, I got a friend who he liked his Command and Conquer back in the day, and not looking forward to this new shit.
Oh, dude, they played it. It does not look good. It's not even a good mobile game. It's great.
Mobile, having grown up like a classic gamer, mobile is the fucking bane of my existence, because it's just like, oh, let's turn some like cool franchise into a fucking mobile game and strip out its elements down to like the most basic bits, and then insert microtransactions here.
Well, the problem with mobile games at the moment is that, I've talked about this before, so
we may have to save this for another rant, because we've gone on for a while, but any closing thoughts on E3?
Alright, closing thoughts on E3. Yeah. It was a year.
A long time. It was a year.
It was a year with Spider-Man.
It was a year, and we are looking forward to Spider-Man, and I admit, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, so that we can all beat the tar out of each other as Nintendo characters. But other than that, I'm still eagerly awaiting like some major announcements for this year, I think.
I'll say this, the Spider-Man game now has one advantage. I actually kind of like the suit now. Kind of.
I mean,
it's growing on me.
So we hope you enjoyed this podcast, Space Cadets, and if you've got any thoughts, definitely comment in the comments section and let us know what you think of E3 or anything else this year. We'd love to hear from you.
Please.
Until then, see you, Space Cowboys.
Sayonara.